What is up, guys? It is Ethan from the Hookup Tackle. I am joined here today with two of my good buddies, Griff and Luis. Today, we're going to talk about the new Evoluzion series. We had a chance to go out and play with a couple of the different models. I know that both of these two use some different ones as well as I. These guys are right now pre-order only. But at the end of the week on Sunday, they will drop for a full sale and will ship within the next couple of days. So let's get into it and talk about, a couple of rods we used.
All right, guys, let's do a quick overview on what the Evoluzion is. So everybody knows the Evoluzion's been around for a long time. This is just an upgraded version of the Evoluzion. New blank, new technology built into this. Still has that titanium, but instead of little specks of titanium, these have long titanium strips that are in here. It's made to be for like a big flex back or big bend back or recall of the rod. Styled very nicely. We were so used to that golden transition color on the older ones. Now we're getting a different color in there. New components on the rod. Hold that for me, Ethan. Some rods will come with slant bridges on them. All right, so this is something that we've seen from models of the past, and now we're getting them back in some of the newer models. All right, Ethan, tell us about your experience on these rods.
Yeah, dude, so I was able to go out and I used two different rods. I used the Lycan, which is going to be the new Midstrolling rod. I believe this is it right here. It does have the slant bridge. Dude, this rod felt amazing, right? I threw anywhere from a 3.5-inch bait all the way up to a 6-inch bait with all different size heads, and the rod handled it amazing. I felt like I was really able to stroll the baits really well with this rod. And then I was actually able to catch a pretty big fish, and it handled the fish amazing. I was able to boat it. The hook was in there great. And then, with the slant bridge, I was able to make some tighter casts, actually looking at the live scope. And I felt like I was a little bit more accurate with this thing dodging my wrist. And that was pretty dope. I was also able to go out and throw the new 110 stick, which felt amazing. I threw anywhere from a junior all the way up to the Ito Shiner, and everything felt amazing. With that new technology and the way that these rods now bend with the fast response back up, I really felt like the jerkbaits had a lot more movement than what you would on like the P5 110 stick. Not saying that this rod is better, but in the water the baits looked amazing fishing them.
Talk to us about why the slant bridge is there on this rod specifically and not on some other models.
Yeah, so on this rod specifically, you're gonna have the slant bridge, and it is for a counterbalance. So when you're jerking the rod tip down, it's gonna have a counterbalance on the back of it to help, with movement of the rod and miss your arm.
All right, Luis, you went out and you fished a couple of these rods.
Yeah, sure did. Honestly, I was like super impressed with these. Like, it's rare to get that excited to fish a new rod, coming in. And
well, you're also the biggest Megabass critic we have in the shop.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, yeah, I'm excited to get my hands on something new, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not sure, right? There's always kind of a little skepticism in there, but honestly, I'm very impressed with these. Like, huge weight rating compared to a lot of, like, it's a lot more generous, right, than a lot of other rods I've noticed. So like you're seeing stuff like specifically in this hedgehog one, like I was throwing, I had the rating goes from an 1/8 to 3/4, and you don't really see that often in a spinning rod or any rod really for that matter. So this one I was throwing like a free rig, like a Jika, something like that. It's pretty short, but it's got a little bit of a tip still, right? So it's sensitive, but man, it's strong. This is strong. It's probably one of the strongest spinning rods I've thrown. It was designed, they said, for big fish and tight cover, and definitely knocked it out of the park with this. I was throwing like 12-pound line on there, pitching around trees and stuff, and I could definitely feel this rod's gonna have the power when I do hook into a big one, but fortunately didn't that day. But man, I'm just really impressed for the strength behind such a short spinning rod, but also still enough tip to be making accurate casts and a little bit lighter baits, right? Like I said, all the way down to 1/8, So very broad and with this rod, so really sick. And one of the casting rods I threw, this is what I caught most of my fish on, was the Super Griffin Competizione. So typically when I'm looking for like a reaction rod or something, I'm throwing like some kind of a walking bait or something, you know, top water reaction in the morning, and then something I can then transition over to a crankbait in the afternoon, you know, as that bite kind of dies off. And this is pretty much right there, you know. It's got the bend nice and deep for, you know, your treble hook baits, but the tip is still fast enough to work some of those top water baits or any of the baits that you need to input something for. Pretty big weight rating on this one, 1/4 to 3/4, same. You know, it's designed for the Griffin, but I was throwing like a Deep X 200. You could definitely see a 300 on there. Any of that walking baits and stuff like that was real nice. Just overall, really dope stick, and this is probably one I'll be adding to my lineup here.
I also had a chance to go out there and play with some of these rods. I spent a lot of time throwing this rod right here. This is the Damian F666. But this rod was rated up to 2 ounces, all right? So it's supposed to be a powerful rod, throw a big wake bait, small little glide bait. I threw a frog on it most of the day just to see if I can catch fish in cover. I was fishing from the bank, and I was fishing in some pretty crazy places where I didn't have a ton of space to move or to get my cast off. So the 6.6 length on this one really helped me out. I was able to cast like really well with it. It was casting like a normal, like your 7.2 frog rod, something like that. And then when I did hook into fish, I felt like the fish had no chance. This rod is super sick. It's got this different type of handle on there. It doesn't have your slant bridge on there or anything like that. It's got this shorter cork piece right here, and then this split reel seat. The trigger, I did notice, is a little far forward. So when palming the reels, it gives you a lot more leverage on that than like your typical rods where that trigger is a little bit back there. So, and another rod that I got to spend a little bit of time with is the Laikiri. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I try to sound it out, so that's what I'm saying. All right. From the looks of this rod, when you first read the specs, all you think about is wind buster. All right, 7'3", f3.5. But this rod is not a wind buster. It is fully capable of doing the things that the wind buster does do because it's got a strange action to it. All right, so it does have the slant bridge on there, which I thought was pretty sick. First time ever casting a rod with a slant bridge on there, so I did have to get used to it. I kept on missing the bottom. It was a little bit weird, but once I caught fish and started fighting fish, it made so much sense to me on why that's there. All right, let me talk to you about this action. All right, this rod bends really deep. It's super soft on that tip. All right, so automatically when you feel rods like this, all you think about is reaction. This is a reaction bait rod, it's a reaction bait bots. So I initially tied a free rig on there and I casted it out, and I was just like, what is this? But instantly I started feeling everything. It's gonna blow your mind when you use it because it feels like it's really soft, but it's super sensitive. It's no other way to explain it. It's kind of like my mind was blown on what I was feeling. I initially didn't think I could feel that, but I felt everything. I think it has to do with this titanium that's in there is meant for the rod to bend and then have that quick snapback. So I was able to feel a lot of things on there. I ended up throwing some reaction bait stuff and catching fish on that. I feel like this is what the Wind Buster was supposed to be when it first came out. Reaction bait rod that was sensitive, but amazing for reaction bait stuff. Now, you guys all know we turned that other rod into a free rig rod, a bottom contact rod. Fully capable of doing that stuff, but in the reaction world, this is where this rod is going to shine. So those are the rods that we used. Ethan, give us some thoughts.
I took the strolling rod out the most, and I used it more than what I did the 110 stick. But going back to what you said, dude, I almost felt like I could feel that bait rolling from side to side. Yeah. It was that sensitive. And then, you know, when I did catch the fish, I mean, I felt like I knew that fish was on there before I even set the hook. These rods are just ultra sensitive. And I think that once you guys get your hands on them, you might be shocked about how they perform. You know, they, like you said, they do bend a lot more than what a traditional rod would.
Yeah, for me, it was just like, getting your hands on them was, well, I actually fished after these guys, so I was kind of getting some of their feedback, right? And I was kind of glad I got some of that from them, because typically, like, you take a rod out and it's similar to something that you're used to, but a lot of these rods do the same thing or accomplish, you know, what you're trying to do, but the action is different than what you're used to. So whereas like the rod might be a little squishier or bendy somewhere in the middle, it makes up for it somewhere else. So it's right, but it just feels different. So it's kind of like I'm learning how to do, or what I'm feeling on a lot of these rods all over again, which I kind of have done that already, you know, moving from different rod lines and whatnot. So that was kind of fun too. But honestly, a lot of these, just sensitivity and then the strength that you wouldn't expect it to be there on such a sensitive rod. It's both just big surprises to me there.
Yeah, so I felt the same way. I felt excited when they came in, felt them in the store, and then I was kind of weird. I was like, this isn't gonna be the way that I thought it would be. And then we take them out and they exceed my expectations.
Yeah.
So I felt like when P5 came, we were on the edge of some kind of technological breakthrough, right? Like something had to happen. The P5s felt amazing, they fished amazing, there was something there. But then we get these rods and I feel like they've gone over that edge. And this is new technology that I still don't even know if I understand it, but I like it.
Yeah.
Right? It's so new, the way everything feels, the way everything works, that I don't know it. But I definitely had a good time, and I definitely liked fighting fish on these rods. Super nice, super dope. So on behalf of everybody here at the Hookup Tackle, Ben, myself, Ethan, Luis, David, thank you. Thank you for your business. Thank you for stopping by. Have a great day.